And you're on, Lana.
Good afternoon, UW-Stevens Point. I'm Lana Poole, Chief Marketing and Enrollment Officer, and your moderator for this virtual town hall. Today, we're here for our students, faculty, and staff as the coronavirus rages on. For our students, we are here to encourage you to keep pursuing your dreams and not let anything stand between you and your purpose. For our faculty and staff, we are here to catch a second wind. And for each other, we are here to be heard, understood, and assured that our efforts are worth it. After 9 months of battling this pandemic together, we are weary. At times, we feel isolated, and some of us may be tempted to walk away, especially as we enter what is considered to be the most dangerous phase of the pandemic. If that is you, please reconsider. First, a vaccine may very well be on the horizon. Secondly, if you persist, you're that much closer to realizing your purpose. And finally, ask for help if you need it. We are indeed in this together. To start off, we hear from our fearless leader, Chancellor Patterson, from Gretel Stock, Dean of University College, and from Colin McNamara, SGA President. Then we'll engage in a roundtable style discussion with the full panel. Chancellor, to you, then to Gretel, then Colin.
Thank you, Lana. First, a shout out to Dr. Tom Gibson, our new chancellor that will be arriving in January. He's tuning in today because he's very, very interested in how this campus is coming along and how we're dealing with the issues that confront us this semester. So yesterday was Veterans Day. I hope you took a few minutes to acknowledge that and to perhaps say thank you to a veteran. We are all veterans of this pandemic. We don't call it a war, but we call it a public health emergency or crisis. Our frontline soldiers include healthcare workers, first responders, grocery store clerks, and yes, teachers, among many others. This is a very stressful time for all of us, especially for our students and for our faculty and for our staff, and yes, for the administration. No one among us has experience in dealing with a pandemic of this magnitude. There's no one that we can call on for their past experiences. All of us are experimenting and innovating and creating new systems and processes for the first time. For all of us, this is hard work, and not everything we create or put in place is going to work. There will be failures along the way. We don't have all the answers either. I've often heard it said that students need to know this or faculty need to know that. We all have many questions, but some of the answers are just not knowable yet. If you're feeling stressed, anxious, depressed, or exhausted, you're not alone. These feelings are normal, particularly in the midst of a crisis. It's no one's fault. There's no one to blame. Our strength will come from our diversity and from our family, the university community. We may disagree among ourselves from time to time, but when someone, or in this case, something, threatens the family, we stand united. That's what we do. Remember, pointers are at our best when faced with a challenge. Some advice. Take a break. Don't spend your entire day checking the dashboards each day, several times a day, watching all the newscasts, reading everything you can find about the pandemic. Stop and take some mental health breaks along the way. Also, and this is more not necessarily advice, but a request, if not a plea, to please follow the public health guidance. And you all know what they are. Sadly, we've had reports that some students who have been identified as close contacts are not quarantining. That is very dangerous behavior, and it will only spread the virus. This afternoon, I want you to know that we are listening. Just this semester, SGA has held several listening sessions, and as a result put together a 40-page summary of those listening sessions. Colin, thank you for leading that work. Well done. But also, there's been the faculty and staff, instructional staff survey focused on the classroom. And then there's been the student engagement survey with over 3,800 responses. And then HR sent out a checking in survey with all employees. Then there's the COVID webpage portal for asking questions or making comments. And of course, the town hall today. So we are rich in feedback data. Our real test will be our ability to follow through with change. I see 3 simple steps that we need to follow. First, acknowledge the issues, which I think we've done. And gathering feedback, we've clearly gathered feedback. And then bring about change, the action items. This does not mean that everything is broken, because it's not. But there's always room to improve. The question is now, how will we adjust our course, especially for the spring semester? In terms of the classroom, I'd like to ask the faculty to take the lead. Based on this mountain of feedback we have before us, I would ask that you identify 3 action items that we need to put in place to improve the classroom experience next semester. I would appreciate it if the faculty would answer that question. Now, next, Dean Gretel Stock will talk about the faculty and instructional staff survey and the student engagement survey. Gretel?
Thank you, Chancellor. I'm going to share a screen with all of you so that you can see some of this data as well as hear it. So I'm going to walk through 3 different surveys that were conducted, one by academic affairs of all faculty, instructional staff, non-instructional, and university staff, the all-employee survey conducted by HR, and the national survey of student engagement. So I'll start with the academic affairs survey. We received about 280 responses. 70% of those responses were faculty or instructional staff, and the remainder were non-instructional staff. It's important to note that all colleges and all campuses were well represented in the survey. So we feel very confident in the representative nature of the data here. So we asked 4 simple questions. The first was, what worked this semester? It was very clear that people were fans of the limited in-person experiences we had and the synchronous course delivery that we had. People felt more able to connect with students and felt that that modality worked. Folks were also happy with leadership communication, that they received robust communication from both the provost office as well as the university as whole. Excuse me. Safety was also lifted up as something that was working, and people felt confident in both the safety and the social distancing procedures that were put in place. Individuals appreciated the flexibility to meet complex work and family lives. The technology that they used, specifically Zoom and Canvas, that helped them deliver instruction, and that there was multiple opportunities for training that they took advantage of starting in March. We also asked what made it harder. The predominant response was workload. Faculty and instructional staff felt very concerned about the amount of work teaching online involved, as well as the number of hours and the challenges in connecting to students. That shows in the second point as well, the lack of student connection, whether faculty felt like students weren't able to get a hold of them, that they had a hard time connecting, or through the virtue of the format, people's webcams were off, and there just wasn't that same experience that people were used to in terms of making that one-on-one connection with students that is so important to faculty. Similarly, all of our colleagues in academic affairs felt like there was a challenge connecting to people on campus, or if they were working off campus, connecting to other colleagues. People also noted personal challenges, whether it was childcare, home duties, or balancing their family lives or their mental health. Clearly, the pandemic is impacting all of us. And then there were some technology things that weren't working from individuals as well. We also asked what suggestions that people had for spring, as well as how we could help people at the university. The first was to plan breaks in advance. While folks understood the need for a break period in most cases, it would have been helpful if we would have known sooner that we needed this kind of thing. So we'd like to do that in a more planful way in the future. People in general thought that more synchronous and face-to-face options would be ideal, though there were also many fans of the asynchronous modality and the flexibility that offered students and faculty. We felt like there needs to be a discussion of student expectations in the classroom and to engage in the classroom experience, but also a discussion of faculty expectations in the classroom and what students can expect in terms of communication, course layout, and other kinds of assumptions. And then additional technology tools and training, whether that was hardware, whether that was more Canvas training, or best practices to help people along the way. We also asked what we should keep doing after COVID. What did we learn from all of this? The biggest takeaway was that we should have a strategic and proactive plan to move more programs online, and that we should be normalizing remote work options for people who need them. Virtual meetings, especially given we have multiple campus locations, were something that we should consider to use, as well as, regardless of class format, robust Canvas use so resources are available for students and faculty. And finally, continue our strong focus on teaching, learning, and student success. The all-employee survey was conducted by Human Resources, and approximately 255 responses were received from all employee types. Half of university employees responding to the survey are working remotely, and about 36% are well over their capacity with workload, with 34% slightly over capacity with workload. This connects very strongly to the faculty and staff in academic affairs survey, where individuals are feeling overloaded with their workload. The majority are satisfied with leadership and communication coming from the university. 85% are satisfied with safety efforts overall, and 54% were very or extremely confident in on-site safety. The final survey I will discuss briefly is the NESE Pulse Student Survey. This is a national survey put out by the National Survey of Student Engagement that gave us the opportunity to take the pulse of the student body. And I'm sorry I misspoke earlier. We did have 2,800 responses to the survey, which still represents a significant population of our student body. Of those responding, 79% were taking remote or online instruction. So the vast majority were mostly learning online. The good news is most have the internet and hardware that they need, and the majority have positive experiences with advisors, faculty, and other students. And also important to the National Survey of Student Engagement, most feel comfortable being themselves, and most feel valued by the institution. While students are feeling supported, there are challenges, and this bore out in both the responses as well as the text responses. The online environment is extremely challenging for students. In most cases, this is not the modality that students chose or worked their lives around. And there are elements of the pandemic that are making this very difficult, whether it's the difficulty in finding on-campus jobs, the difficulty in managing work schedules or family expectations, and the workload that's involved in online teaching. There's a difficulty and delay with some students in communicating with some faculty and some support offices. There was also a lack of opportunities in their mind for social interactions, and they were desperately wanting that connection with their peers. Many students felt that there was additional workload in the online format they weren't expecting and hadn't planned for, and that inconsistencies in Canvas were making their lives a lot more difficult moving from class to class and trying to organize their lives and their workload. There are some similar themes between all three surveys I felt it's important to point out. The first is everyone is feeling overworked, and everyone is struggling with reaching each other and connecting. Online is not the first choice for most classes and most services, but there are bright spots. We are innovating, we are working together, and we're trying to make this work as the best we can for our campus community. We all desire improved social and community connections at the university, and that's a good thing. Safety has been prioritized and is working, which I think is one of the most important things that we're taking away from here today. So what's next? There will be changes addressed for the spring semester, but we need to keep our safety protocols in place. That is one thing that we know is working and we can't shift and change. So how we thread that needle is very important. Collaborative conversations are underway to make some of these specific and actionable improvements for faculty, employees, and students. We have a work group right now between faculty and students to make some specific recommendations for changes for spring and beyond. And we're also working with the survey feedback to make sure that we're addressing other concerns that are raised through administration or through supervisory channels. Finally, I think it's important to remember that the pandemic will end. Hope is on the horizon with potential vaccines, and we know we can get through this if we work together. Thank you very much. I'd like to pass it on to Colin, who will talk more about the student forum feedback.
Good afternoon, everyone. For those of you who may not know me, my name is Colin McNamara, and I'm honored to serve as the president of the student body. Over the past few weeks, I've conducted listening sessions and had many conversations with students on how the university can best serve them. Over the summer, I said, out of every challenge comes an opportunity, and I still believe that, which is why so many of us on this panel and more have been working around the clock in a collaborative way to make sure that this works for you and to make sure this works for everyone. I want to leave as much time for questions and comments as I can. So I'm going to close by saying that we will continue to work all day and every day for you until we can get this to be the experience that you would hope for. Thank you, and I look forward to your questions.
Thank you, Chancellor, Gretel, and Colin. Now we're going to transition to the question and answer portion of this town hall. Here's how it's going to work. I'll introduce the topics and questions for the panel to discuss based on the feedback that we've received. And then as part of the discussion, we want to hear from you. So if you have a question or a comment, please submit it via the webpage address that's on the screen over my shoulder. In addition to Chancellor Patterson, Gretel Stock, and Colin McNamara, we welcome the following panelists. Tony Babel, UWSP Chief of Police. Jason Dacchioli, Assistant Dean, School of Biology, Chemistry, and Biochemistry. Stacy Gherkin, Director of the Counseling Center. Eric Ressler, Director of Human Resources. Will Sheeter, SGA Speaker of the Senate. Troy Sepholt, Dean of Students. Greg Summers, Provost and Vice Chancellor for Academic Affairs. Al Thompson, Vice Chancellor for Student Affairs. And Kathy Zalewski, Program Director, Doctor of Physical Therapy Program. So to start off, we know that the coronavirus has taken a physical toll, but now experts are saying that it's taken an emotional and mental health toll as well. So Stacy, I would like if you could start this discussion. As Director of Counseling Services, could you share with us what you're seeing this year compared to last year? Tell us what services are available and give us advice for reducing anxiety and stress during this time.
Sure. So compared to last year, we kind of started out surprisingly slower than usual, but over time we've definitely caught up. And what we've noticed, as everybody's been noting, is that there's a clear that the COVID-related stress is compounding already existing mental health challenges. And it's also for students who are used to being able to function well, it's also created a challenge for them as well. They're really struggling with fatigue and exhaustion and feeling overwhelmed, focus and motivation, all those things that really make them good students and successful students. And I think that's the other thing that we're seeing is that students are struggling to perform up to their normal levels. And this is really, really difficult for them because they're very invested in doing well and being successful. And having to understand that in this context, we're limited energy systems and there are so many things grabbing our attention. We only have so much energy and attention to focus on school and so it's important to take care of ourselves. So yeah, that's the themes that we keep hearing. What were the other questions you had with that? Sorry.
Oh, well, what services do you have available? So we think that want to make sure that our campus understands all that you have to offer and what resources are out there to help through this. I'm not sure everyone is fully aware of all you have to offer. I know you're doing a lot.
Right. So we continue to see students individually because that's probably the most effective way of helping students maneuver through this. Jason Seward, who is our education and prevention coordinator, has taken his usual programs that he does in person and transferred them into an online format and has been presenting them in working with faculty and other staff members to to present to students about how to take care of themselves and what resources are there. We are also kind of partnering with the Health and Wellness program, and we have 2 interns or practicum students that are developing some content for us on tips on how to take care of ourselves and mental health, and we're getting those out on social media. And I think one of the other things I want people to know about is the Silver Cloud, right? Silver Cloud is an online mental health tool that is available to all faculty, staff, and students at free of cost. The UW system administration is footing this cost, so it's free to everybody. And Silver Cloud is an app that offers self-guided programs for anxiety, depression, stress, resiliency, and insomnia. So it's a great resource, and we'll put out that link again. We've been putting it out every month on the mod, and we'll continue to put that out so people can use that resource.
And do you see more students coming forward because of the pandemic with anxiety and depression and
It's definitely plays a role. Yeah. Yes. And again, like, you know, if you already had trouble with anxiety and depression, this just compounds. And if you normally can function well, this is added an extra weight. I mean, stress it compounds, and so it begins. Students who normally can function fairly well are really struggling.
Kathy, as a physical therapist, how does physical activity impact mental health? And how important would you say it is for us to keep physically active in the colder weather months during the pandemic as the end of the semester approaches?
Physical activity has a strong relationship to managing depression, anxiety, and stress. We think of stress sometimes as 2 different kinds of stress. There's adaptive stress where your body gets stronger when it is exposed to that stress repeatedly. And that's the kind of stress response that you get with being physically active. And then there is unadaptive stress that really continues to wear down the body. So exercise as an adaptive stressor is a really powerful way to help students manage some of the related mental health issues that they're experiencing. It doesn't replace everything that Stacy has already talked about as resources. It augments all of those resources. And Stevens Point, both as a campus and as a community, just has a really well-developed relationship to the outdoors, to being engaged with the outdoors. And so students, if you can prioritize a way to just go for a walk and make that part of your everyday habit, that will really help in developing the resilience that you need to continue to support your own physical and mental health as we get into the winter months. That includes getting outside even when the weather starts to get colder. So I encourage you to find ways to continue to explore all of the wonderful resources that are here on the UW Stevens Point campus.
Okay, very good. Will, Colin, what resources and tips do you find most helpful for staying sane during this time?
I guess I'll start with that. So the number one thing is like, just make sure you have a schedule, right? So, the easiest way to do it is like, you can't remember everything you need to do in the day. So, I utilize Outlook calendars that people like writing it down, but that is my number one way of making sure that I don't get overwhelmed with things. If you plan out things ahead instead of having to do everything on a Sunday night before 11:59 p.m. And the second thing is utilize Zoom and your UWSP email with Zoom because you're an authenticated user, and have conversations with your friends via Zoom. I do that all the time, and talk to my friends. We play games online and stuff like that, and that's like the way that you can get social interaction. It's not quite the same, but it's better than sitting alone in your dorm room or your apartment and just staring at the ceiling. So those are the 2 things that I've been doing.
Yeah, I would just add to that by saying, don't feel bad for taking time to yourself. I often have a crazy busy schedule, and I still find time in my day to take an hour where I silence the notifications on my phone. I put in some headphones and I go for a walk, either in Schmeekley or over in Piffner Park. So just don't feel bad for taking time for yourself. And it's okay that if you are struggling or if you are having like a bad day, it's okay to reach out and say, I'm having a bad day. No one's going to fault you for that. We're learning. We are learning how to cope with this. So it's okay to ask for help. It's okay to take time for yourself. It's okay to have an occasional just like breakdown, because those happen in a normal year, let alone during a pandemic and so many other factors in the world. So I would just say take time and be patient with yourself.
Can I add on, just to add to his, that the taking time for yourself is, we often call that non-productive time, when reality, that's the thing that helps us stay productive. So we need that downtime in order to be at our best when we need to be at our best. So finding those activities that you find restorative, re-energizing, calming, that's the things that keep us going and keep us at our best in times like this.
And Stacy, you might want to add that also a good night's sleep.
Oh,
a good night's sleep and eating your meals. And because people, if you're having less sleep, that adds to the stress and anxiety each day. So get that good sleep, 7-8 hours. Try to get that.
Consistently, good sleep hygiene, keeping some kind of schedule so that you're sleeping at the same time, eating at the same time, doing your work at the same time is really, really helpful.
This is great advice, a good reminder for all of us. Download the Silver Cloud app, stay active, get exercise, get good sleep, eat well, take advantage of the resources, go online. It's better than being alone, and utilize Zoom and all the tools that we have available. So thank you. I think it's a good reminder for all of us that we have to be mindful about our health and our mental health during this time. Now we turn to this topic. What does the future hold for learning at UWSP? Greg, I'm hoping you could start by giving us a bit of an overview. Tell us what we can expect for the rest of this semester, spring semester, spring break, and set the groundwork for our expectations.
Sure, Lana, thank you very much. So for this semester, I think everyone knows that we're going to continue our mix of in-person and hybrid and online teaching through Thanksgiving, and we'll be shifting then to a fully virtual learning environment for the remainder of the semester. Although I know there are some students and faculty members who are going to continue to work in pockets, in studios and labs where they really need to continue some in-person teaching for the remainder of the semester. Our winter schedule will be fully virtual, and then in the spring semester, we'll resume roughly the same kind of schedule that we have this semester, with a mixture of in-person, hybrid, and online learning. Thus far, as of today, our academic calendar for the spring semester is unchanged from what we originally published. The start dates and the end dates have all remained unchanged, and we will continue to have a spring break, although I want to put an asterisk on that. We are all subject to the decisions that are made by the governor, the legislature, UW system. We don't know whether the continued progress of the virus and the status of the virus in our communities may change the decision making at that level. So things could change at any moment, but we're planning a spring break. And I know folks have been interested in whether we're going to have any sort of built-in working days, kind of catch-up days of the kind that we tried this semester on November 4th. As Gretel alluded to, we want to make sure we plan those ahead. Our student and faculty work group is going to be considering that idea and making recommendations through governance, so that may be a possibility. But we will certainly be working ahead to try and plan those so that everybody's aware before the semester starts.
And does the Governor Evers' stay-at-home order impact our situation? And is there a chance that we'll go fully online?
Well, as I said, there's always a chance. The governor's order that we saw this week is not so much an order as it is a request. And it's a request that's very wise. But the guidance that we've gotten from UW system thus far is to continue to operate as we have been. So there's no change for our campus. apart from continued, suggestion and urging to really be careful in all of your work and personal life, to be masking up and staying home whenever possible, particularly outside of any obligations that you have for class or work. So that hasn't changed our situation as of today.
One of the things that we've heard from students is that they have some questions about Canvas and wondering why Canvas has been inconsistent, and are we working to make it more user-friendly?
I think the answer to that is yes. We're certainly aware of the frustrations that students have had, not just with the inconsistencies in Canvas, but with different kinds of online tools that instructors have been using, and that's a problem that has occurred across the UW system. Again, we're going to be working to encourage some much stronger recommendation about the consistent communication through Canvas, especially regarding assignments. We recognize that if students are learning about assignments from the syllabus, from email, from Canvas, from different spots in Canvas, that's caused some confusion. So we're going to be putting out some guidelines for our faculty and staff to really try to bring that into a consistent form of communication with a consistent template so that everybody knows where to look.
And to expand on something that Gretel talked about earlier, synchronous learning, why aren't all classes required to have a synchronous option, or are they?
They're not required right now. The synchronous option presents us with some real challenges. We all know that that's the preference for most of our faculty and our students, but we also know that that creates some technology challenges, both on the delivery side in our classrooms and in the sort of the consumer side for students who are participating in classes remotely. Not all of our classes are wired or have the technology to really effectively provide a synchronous video or even audio experience for students. So in many of our classrooms, the only option that a professor has if they're teaching in person to allow students to experience that synchronously is to bring a laptop into class and to try and stay near the mic. And we've heard from students that that has been pretty inconsistent. And sometimes the students are logging in, but not able to hear, not able to participate. And that's a technology issue that we're not going to be able to solve in the short run. And we also know that, some students have had trouble with Wi-Fi and having adequate technology. I'm glad that most of our students have appropriate technology, but not all of them do. So we've worked hard to try and create as much synchronous experience as we can. We're going to look to expand that if possible. But we also recognize that we have to maintain some asynchronous options for students wherever possible when they just can't participate.
Donna, if I could add in
please.
really quick, I think one of the things that people are looking for, whether it's with us in a synchronous class or in a class that's designed asynchronous, is some kind of opportunity for connection with other students in the class and with their faculty members. So we're looking at recommendations for, even if someone has an asynchronous class, that there's a scheduled time where people could come and talk to each other, to work on classwork. And that might be faculty office hours, that might be a more scheduled time for each class. But I think it's really important that connection is something that everybody is hungering for, faculty, staff, and students alike.
I couldn't agree more. Well, let's switch gears and talk about how we can enhance learning and strengthen the faculty-student connection. We heard in your data and saw that there's opportunity. Faculty want to be more connected and students want to be more connected. So let's talk about how we can help make that happen. One of the things that we're hearing from students is that they're concerned because professors are making assignments that are due on the weekend, which doesn't always work well for their schedules. How would you respond to that, faculty?
So I can jump in on that because I think it might tie into as well a workload issue. As somebody who has incorporated weekend due dates just to give students a little bit more breathing room and breathing time, I think one thing that could be done if that's not working for students is that we could push a date to a Monday night or a Tuesday night, beyond what it would have been a weekend day, just to give them some more breathing room so that they have a little more time to work. I think, Lana, and I want to touch on this because I think it's important, because I've heard that there's been some issues with the workload that students are experiencing. That's right. And what they think. So just beyond sort of having a quiz due on the weekend. And, you know, I think that there is going to be a balance that needs to be struck between both the student concerns and the faculty concerns. And I think a lot of that is being handled right now with the working group that Dean Stock has put together, which has members of SGA, members of governance who are also faculty on there. I think as far as tangibles go with the workload concerns, there's a couple of parts to that. So it's incumbent upon us as instructors to really explicitly state what our goals are for our students. I mean, I personally became a professor to help students engage with chemistry because I'm a chemist. It's part of our responsibility to help students realize that college, regardless of what time we're living in, it's a lot of work. So, I mean, you're looking at, if you have a full course load of 15 credits, 2 to 3 hours, more on the 3-hour side for STEM, of outside work per credit of in-class work. So that's almost a 45-hour work week. Now, that doesn't mean that we can't, as faculty, learn from how we do things. So I can say for myself, I sort of did what we call a flipped classroom this semester, where students would watch lectures outside of class, and then I had synchronous problem-solving sessions. By and far, the synchronous problem-solving sessions were most popular. Students enjoyed going to those because they actually get a chance to talk to each other, talk to me. And so when I teach this course again, I'm going to drop the outside lectures, and I'll just have synchronous, Zoom face-to-face opportunities for the students. So I think what we have to do is, balance what we expect with what we're hearing this semester, and it's a learning process. I think we're all learning as the semester winds down, really what worked for each of us and what didn't work.
What do you say to students who believe that their professors think they're not trying hard enough?
And I invite other people to chime in as well. I would be surprised if there's any faculty member that would actually say my students aren't trying hard enough. I really would be surprised. I would say if a student has a concern that, because I think this also leads into how students feel approaching their professors. And if you've got a concern with your performance in the class or what you think the expectations are, I think it's perfectly within your rights to approach the professor and say, hey, I've got some concerns. And what I tell my students is if you approach me with respect, I approach you with respect. It's a two-way street. So there has to be a good mutual respect there. So I think having that conversation is appropriate. Now, if you feel like you're concerned that that's not going to get you anywhere, then there is a process to go through. It's going either to the department chair or the discipline coordinator for who you're working with for a particular class, or it's going to the assistant dean or the dean of a college if necessary, if you really think that something is going amiss. But I will say that by and large, the faculty and instructional academic staff and staff in general on this campus are very receptive to helping students. They want to help students. But if you really are concerned and you're worried about maybe, I've heard a lot about students fearing retaliation, go up a level and go to that person's supervisor just to have a conversation.
Lana,
I just want to say real quick, and I agree with Jason, everything he just said. I do want to say this because it sometimes was missing because of COVID. Convocation, one of the things I say in convocation is that when we would be in person, we would have 400, 500, 600 people in purple polos sitting in the audience, faculty and staff. And I'm really going to talk about the faculty and instructional staff who I was saying there, they would give them 24/7. They would work 24 hours, 7 days a week if needed. I really believe our faculty and staff are there. I think COVID has just elevated and escalated everything to a point where we have these moments. And I hope as we move forward that we can smooth that out and have real discussions about what we talked about earlier in this forum. And that's the key part.
Yeah. Communication is the key.
Lana, can I also add, I think one of the things that the students may not realize that they are actually gaining from this is a life skill that I think will make this generation of students just amazing people when they transition from academia into employment, I listened to a podcast for fun. It's a podcast called Freakonomics. And one of the individuals on that podcast, Dr. Stephen Levitt, he's an economist, he works at the University of Illinois, Chicago, was interviewed a while ago. And one of the things that he said is in his first job, he was given an assignment by his supervisor to analyze data that he knew nothing about. And he went to his supervisor and said, I don't know how to do this. And the employer said, I didn't hire you because you know the data. I hired you because you know how to figure it out. And if there's nothing that our students who are in school right now aren't learning, they are going to be masters at figuring out how to learn that which is new and novel and unique. And they are going to be fabulous problem solvers. It's not, you haven't learned that in a way that we necessarily wanted you to learn that. This is a byproduct of COVID. But I promise the students that this skill that you are gaining is going to serve you so well in post-COVID times, and those times are going to come, and you will be brilliant in what you can do moving forward.
That reminds me of the saying that some of life's greatest lessons are learned through the challenging times. And I think that applies here. That's a really good point, Kathy, is yes, this is very difficult, but think of all we're gaining and learning from going through this and how much more prepared we are to go and have a successful future and to be resilient in our careers. It's a good point. So what do you say to a student who might be so far behind that they're considering dropping out of school because they believe their professors don't care or there's just no point in staying in there and trying to catch up?
If I guess I can start that too, and I would recommend that Kathy can jump in as well. I've had some hard conversations with students this semester. Hard because it was hard for them to come and talk to me about those. And in those cases, I direct students to a couple of different resources. Counseling services, to talk to somebody who is best qualified to help them with things that are going on in their life. An academic advisor who's actually trained in honest to goodness academic advising, to talk about maybe that they're finding out that, for example, that career in STEM wasn't the best for them, but they're finding out during COVID times, and nothing works during COVID times. So talking to somebody who's really geared towards helping a student with their life goals, that's critical. And so I would direct people that way. So, and I think that faculty and staff welcome those conversations with students when they come to you with concerns. And again, if a student is not comfortable talking to the instructor, send them up, because the higher up I don't want to call it the food chain, but the higher up the food chain you go, the more connected those people are with the resources on campus. And so I definitely point students in those directions to help them to figure out what might be the next best step, and and let them know that, yeah, there are resources out there, that dropping out doesn't have to be your only choice.
And I would add to that, your advisors are resources on campus that can help direct you in the right direction. I think a number of times faculty structure their courses during COVID times where office hours are a synchronous opportunity for students to gather, and that might not be where you want to have a personal conversation. Send an email to your instructors, get a separate private meeting. I promise you, your faculty on this campus care deeply about your success. And if the faculty member doesn't quite know where to help you reach out, they certainly know the people who they can help get you in contact with. And so reach out. Just the most important thing is to reach out, because I assure you there isn't a faculty member on this campus who doesn't care.
And let me jump in on that with what Kathy said. I don't know about anybody else here, but I get, hundreds of emails a day, and I do occasionally miss one. So if you're a student and you send an email and you don't get a response, give it 24 hours, send it again. Don't be afraid. You're not bothering us. Don't be afraid to send it again. Follow up, because I guarantee you the first one might have been missed because of the volume of email. Ask again. Don't be afraid to do that.
And Lana, if I might lean in just one little bit. As the Dean of Students, every year there are students who do legitimately need to take a break from a singular class for the semester. It is not a judgment on your character if you need to take a break. So if that is where you're feeling, certainly follow Jason and Kathy's advice. Please visit with your faculty. If you're not sure how to do that or where to go, amen. Your academic advisors are amazing colleagues for you as students. And everyone across the campus usually knows that if they don't know where to go to, that's the job of the Dean of Students office, is to help students connect to the resources that they need. And if it's, I need to not be in this class anymore, or I need to legitimately have a conversation with someone about what that might mean for me personally, that is part of the work of the Dean of Students office, to support our instructional colleagues, to support counseling, to support all of that for all three of our campuses, for all, wherever you are as a student, right? There are times when life shows up and it's not helpful, and you actually do need to take a break or at least talk to someone about that possibility. So your faculty, your instructors, your academic advisors, counseling every day, which by the way is available on all three campuses for our students. And of course, us in the Dean of Students office, we are more than happy to talk with you about what you might need to be well the rest of this semester, so then you can be here next semester and graduate from this place.
So Troy, just to expand on that, what do you say to a student who's considering taking a gap semester or a gap year?
Well, I probably two very quick answers. Is often that's a reaction to a current and immediate stressor, right? That is the only thing I can think of right now, is to not be a student or not be in this class. Before I was suspended from college, I did not talk to my teachers, my instructors. I felt like I was a failed human at the time. And I know that is simply where I was as a person before I got suspended. So it is that if that's your first thought, don't let that be your only thought, right? Like, okay, I might need to take a break. Okay, let's talk about that. And then second, which I think has been said across the board, and my friends Will and Colin know that we have said it to all of our students, which is hard, is to ask for help, to admit what might feel like a weakness. So what we have done, student government, myself, everyone you see on the screen, is we need to be asking you as students. Every faculty member should have taken the time to hopefully try to touch base with you privately, personally, or at least offer a space for that. And if you haven't seen that or heard that from someone, ask or just email me. I'm your dean. Let's go. Let us try to help you and connect with you, and we'll connect you to the right space.
Well, clearly communication is the key. Speaking out when you need help, and not being afraid or fear of being embarrassed, but to encourage yourself to go ahead and speak out and ask for help when you need it. That's not always easy to do, and but I think if you can master that skill and come out of your shell to ask for that help, that is also a skill that will serve you well in life, is being able to speak out when you need something.
And then if I could jump in quick, as a fellow student, I could not echo more of what the people before me have said. I know from my position as somebody in SGA that there are dozens, if not hundreds of people on this campus who will bend over backwards to make sure that you succeed. Yeah. So all you need to do is just reach out to them and they will help you.
Yeah. And then if I could also jump in real quick as well. I would just say that we have a very unique experience on this campus, and I have friends across all of system and across the nation and colleges and universities. And the one thing that I would have to say that we have, and I have the most confidence in saying, is that we on this campus are a very close family. And I think that's the key to getting through this. And I would say that for anyone who kind of remembers from their childhood what family means, it means no one gets left behind, no one gets forgotten about. We have dedicated faculty members who, if you ask for help, they will do everything in their power to get you to that finish line. We have students who are so compassionate, who we will be your shoulder. If you need someone, we will be there for you, and we will help you get to the finish line as well. But the most important thing is you're your own best advocate. We will reach out. We will continue to talk to you. But if there's something that you want to see done or you want to see changed, reach out to us. That's what we're here for. If you don't know how to necessarily talk with someone, reach out to the dean of students, reach out to your advisor, reach out to your SGA representatives. That's what we're here for. We are here to be your resource, and we will get you pointed in the right direction. And I can promise you, and anyone who knows me knows I don't make promises that I can't keep. I can promise you that if you reach out and you ask for help, we have a very large, dedicated family that will never let you down, and we will get you to where you need to be.
Thank you, Colin. Well said. So I want to talk a second about internships, and we've just received a question. I think this is really important. And here's the question. I know that internship hours have been reduced due to COVID, but is there any way to explore hybrid or virtual internships? Other universities are exploring this option, but I've not heard anything from UWSP about how they are adjusting internships to maintain social distancing and health precautions. Gretel, do you have some thoughts on that?
I do, actually. So we, in our local employers, we've been working very closely to make sure that there are still opportunities for safe local internships. And of course, I have signed a lot of paperwork approving a lot of safe and local internships for those students. We're still looking to see how we can support additional on-campus opportunities, but of course, many of those opportunities were predicated on the fact that there were people around and events happening in person. So some of our on-campus internships are necessarily constrained, just like some of our on-campus employment has been. We do have some exciting opportunities, though. We have a London internship program that we run through our study abroad office every year. And we now have a virtual option, and we have several students who have gone through the virtual option now. And they're finding a really exciting cross-cultural experience that they're having right from their own home. So we have experiences like that and other virtual internship options that we can explore with students. We just need to make sure that we understand your needs and can connect you to the right person. And I know my colleagues in the other degree granting colleges who run internship programs have also been working very hard to connect their students to opportunities.
And what are some of the alternatives to internships in case a student can't complete the internship? Are there other things they can do to kind of build up that resume of internship experience?
Sure. Well, I certainly wish my amazing colleagues from Career Services were here to talk about this today, but I will do my best. One thing that is always important is taking a look at the experiences that you've had, either through any volunteering you're doing, anything you're doing in student clubs or groups, and to talk about how those could apply to a work setting. So if you're someone like Colin, who's very organized and communicating with people in the student body and helping to connect people to resources, that's perfect things to put on a resume as far as valuable career skills and outcomes. Or if you're working on a really big project for a class, that's another great thing to put on there too.
Okay, thank you. So an hour goes by very quickly, and we have some other topics that we're not going to get around to today, but we'll host another virtual town hall in the future so we can talk about everything. But I do want to end with this question, and I'm going to address it first to Colin and Will. And the question is, if I'm a student, why should I stay?
Sure, I can take that one first. I think that I kind of touched on this earlier. You will not be able to go, it'll be very difficult for you to go to another institution and have the family that you do here and the support system you do here. I've come from a very small town, and I didn't think that coming to Stevens Point was going to be like, oh my gosh, it's like I just moved to a bigger version of my family. But I would say that you should stay here because we will be dedicated to you. We will take time. We have a great faculty to student ratio where if you need the help, you can reach out. I know students at other colleges or other universities where if they reach out, it may take much longer. You can get a response sometimes even within the same day, maybe even the same hour. I had a faculty member respond to my email in about 5 minutes. So I would say that that's something that we should be very proud of here. Just remember that we're a family and that we will be here for you. So just, if you stay here, we will have your back no matter what.
Yep, and then to add to that, it's important to remember that these are, extraordinary circumstances. So this, like the experience that you've had this semester, especially if you're like a freshman who has no experience of previous semesters, is not the normal thing that we have on this campus. Like as a sophomore who got to experience a semester and a half of normality, I can say that I have never been like happier in my life as I was on this campus. And then I've toured a lot of other campuses, and I never got the same vibe as I did from this place. And Stevens Point is truly my home now, and I wouldn't leave it for anything. So I would just keep in mind that this time is extraordinary, and don't make a decision like that if it's simply influenced by COVID.
Yeah, and to go off of that, something that I, when I was touring colleges, it's hard to believe that that's already been 3 years now, but when I was touring colleges, I would tour colleges and my mom would ask me, so what do you think about this one? And I would say, I like it, but it doesn't have that home feel. And I didn't know exactly like what that meant or how to describe it until I actually came to Stevens Point. And that's where I truly felt. Sometimes I think some of my family members get a little offended when I'm like, oh, I have to go home and I'm talking about coming to campus. And so I would say that that's something, don't necessarily just focus on this semester. Give it another chance. This is a pandemic. We're learning too. And sometimes in families, you got to have a little bit of tension. That's how you know you still care about each other. And so I would say that would be my best advice as well.
One thing I want to real quick say is that the trend lines across the country are the same. That the experience that you may be facing and feeling is you're not alone. It's happening all over the country. The difference here at Point is that we're the Pointers. We all stick together. We are one. And if you hang in there and get through this semester, next semester it will be better. And the following semester will be way better. But remember one thing, you picked Point for a reason. And you picked it before COVID really hit. You knew what you were getting. And you're going to get that experience. It will come back. We will do everything in our power to transition the best we can. We're all learning. But the most important part, we will get better. And as long as you hang in there and pursue your degree and pursue your dreams, you'll be fine.
Thank you, panelists. Now I invite Chancellor Patterson to close our session before leaving us with a special video. And I want to thank everyone for their time today. This has been a great discussion. I know I personally have made a few notes, really good insight, so I appreciate that. Chancellor?
You're muted, Chancellor.
Thank you, Troy. Somebody's always got my back. Thank you. Well, as I was saying, you all see now why I am so incredibly proud of our students. Aren't they really, really, really incredible? And we have the absolutely best faculty and staff that any university could possibly have. I'm so proud of each and every one of you. I'd like to close today with this thought. What better time is there then when you're in a crisis to take a step back, to examine our foundation, and if necessary, adjust our vision for the future? Our university opened in 1894, and in just 10 years, 1904, the Wisconsin idea was born. Here is the University of Wisconsin-Stevens Point's reaffirmation of the Wisconsin idea.
Our mission is to develop human resources,
to discover and disseminate knowledge,
to extend knowledge and its application
beyond the boundaries
beyond the boundaries
beyond the boundary of our campuses,
and to serve and stimulate society by developing in students
heightened intellectual,
cultural,
and humane sensitivities,
scientific, professional, and technological expertise,
and a sense of purpose.
And a sense of purpose.
And a sense of purpose.
Sentido de propósito.
目的の意識.
Inherent in this broad mission are methods of instruction,
research,
extended training,
and public service designed to educate people and improve the human condition.
Basic to our purpose is the search for truth.
The search for truth.
The search for truth.
Is the search for truth.
Basic to our purpose is the search for truth.